Dani Barker's in the house on the Zaddy Zone. How are you, Queen?
I'm great. I'm
You look so
excited to be
cute.
on your podcast. Oh, thanks.
Did you do something with your eyes or is it your hair? What is it?
So I did this. It's the gamble hairstyle where you don't know what you're gonna get and you just go
Oh,
and
oh,
it
I
either
love
turns
that.
out or it doesn't. And I was like, you know what? It
Yes.
turned out enough. Just
Mm-hmm.
enough. Except for this.
No, I like it. Don't touch it. Don't fuck
Okay.
with it. You've done it. You've done it great. Dani Barker, if you've seen, you're probably tuning into the Zaddy Zone today, either not knowing what you're getting or you're tuning in because you've seen Follow Her, which came out on June 2nd and is now available on VOD. But you would have seen a movie called Follow Her with myself and Dani starring, and Dani wrote the movie. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not going to give anything away. I think it should be spoiler free, shouldn't it, Dani?
Probably, right?
Yeah, just in case you haven't watched it. But even if you haven't, it's okay. You're going to enjoy this because we're going to talk about kind of a really interesting creative process from the beginning to the end. And so let's start right there at the beginning, Dani. You wrote this movie called Follow Her, which is about social media. It's really preemptive, actually. When you wrote it, it really is preemptive of, because when did you write it?
Oh, so the first draft was written late 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
then there was probably, I couldn't even count how many drafts were written on this script.
Right. No, I mean, there was, even while we were shooting, we were rewriting it.
You and
And
I were rewriting scenes
essentially,
on set,
yeah, yeah.
basically.
But you kind of are coming from an interesting individual perspective. You used to have a Craigslist show. Could you speak about this web series that you used to have?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's funny because it was never actually in the script. It was never part of the story. That came in later as we were developing my
Ah,
character's backstory. But that show that I was doing, it was called Starvival. That was, I think,
Starvival.
yeah, one word.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all on YouTube. It was like the early days of YouTube. So it was, I like to think of myself as a pioneer of the YouTube days.
And you were
It was,
were you secret cameraing people?
yeah, it was all hidden cameras. And
Wow.
gosh, it was so long ago that the cameras I had were these Kodak cameras that look like smartphones, but not everybody had a smartphone then. So people weren't as aware. As I was
Mm.
doing the show, because I was doing the show on and off for, I think, 6 years, people became more aware. Everyone was coming up, everyone had their own style of a smartphone coming out. And so I got progressively worse at filming, which is part of the reason that I stopped doing the show because people kept catching on. Because I would literally sit down with someone for a coffee meet or in a park and be holding my Kodak camera like this, filming the
Yes.
entire thing. And people weren't picking up on it until a few years had gone by, and now everyone has a phone and everyone's aware of what kind of phone that everyone else has. So
Mm.
they're aware of where you're holding it. So even if I had it in my pocket or my
Oh,
purse,
totally. Totally. I'm
yeah,
very aware of that when people like are kind of even slightly pointing their camera at me,
right.
or like even if they're pretending to type and it's facing me, I'm like, that could be filming me right now for all I
Oh
know.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about this. Didn't you find, I actually don't even know the story of this. Didn't you find people on Craigslist and
Mhm.
then you met up with them in person and secretly filmed them? Talk
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, so the whole show launched through a Craigslist ad that I found that was $50 to get tickled for an hour. 1 hour of tickling. It didn't mention the details. It didn't say anything about being strapped down on a bed. But this was one of the strangest ads that I had come across on Craigslist at that time. Because this was before everything. I think they had taken down the people seeking people section.
Ah,
There was that whole sexual section of Craigslist that they had taken down that all those people started posting in the TV, film, video section.
ah.
But before that happened, things like tickling ads, foot fetish ads were more rare. So they stood out. So I saw this tickling ad and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Who would do
Wait, so
that?
the ad was for someone to tickle you
Yeah.
and you went?
Yeah, I went. So I would always find friends for the episodes to go with me. It was
Okay.
usually men that were my bodyguard, so it was safe because it was
Yeah.
sometimes meeting at other people's homes and or outside in parks, coffee shops. And at that time, I didn't even have a smartphone. I had a camcorder. That was
Right.
it was maybe half a foot long, about this size,
Yep.
and I stuck it in a handbag, and I
Ah.
cut a little hole in the handbag so that the camcorder was just sticking out enough. But in that tickle job, I completely screwed up, and I put the purse on the dresser, and the camcorder was facing the purse, half of the tickling
Oh.
experience.
Yeah.
I don't know the terms
So,
for this kind of job.
clarify for me. Wait. Now,
Yeah.
you went and met up with these people in public, but then you went to their house and they tickled you.
This one was probably the sketchiest job for me because I did not meet up with this person before the job. I went in more
Okay.
blind. I had spoken to him, and you read between the lines, so you have a good sense of whether this person, like, what their intentions are. Typically, when
Yeah.
someone posts a tickling ad, they legitimately want to tickle you. They're not hiding the fact that they want to tickle you.
Mm.
That's what I found when it would get into more like the fetish community stuff, that it's pretty clear what they're looking for. So there was actually less to worry about in that regard, if that makes sense.
Okay. Wait, so you did take a guy with you? You took another person with you? You took two guys along with you to this guy's house, and he tickled you.
And he tickled me for an hour. And
an hour of tickling. That's awful.
Yeah, how much tickling did you have in Follow Her, and you were freaking out?
I mean, yeah, I'm a particularly, I think I remember, I'm if you tickle me in my armpits, I'm fucked. I get so like, I jump. People even like touching me around that area. I'm like, could you just not? Like, it just makes me. And I remember telling you that the first,
yeah, you did,
when we shot, and you were like, oh really? And I'm like, and if you've seen the movie, then you know that she got in there.
I did.
No, but I'm just fascinated that you put up with. I mean, I think the whole thing fascinates me because, number one, you really wanted to shoot this. You really wanted to shoot this, but also you were willing to go through an hour of tickling to get it. How much money did you make? Did he pay you?
Yeah, I made my $50.
$50 for an hour? That's nothing.
Brutal.
Pre-inflation, though. I mean,
true. And I was a starving artist in Toronto, and I was getting by on pennies and scrounging to pay rent. So it was, those starving artist days.
I think that's something that, like, I would really love to talk about, is being a starving artist. I was a starving artist for many years, sometimes still flirt with it. And, I see that in you too. We've both been people who are like, fucking scrape the bottom and are like, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to make it? How are we going to make things happen? And I mean, I know an entire community of people and I just look at them and I go, how are you surviving? Like, how are you still in LA, for instance, still trying to keep it acting and have there's no even possibility of anything changing anytime soon. You're unemployed, like, as an actor. And it's hard to fathom, like, how people keep going, but we keep going, because
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm more spiritual when it comes to money, because I really do feel like there's this magic around it where when you really need it, it appears. It always does. At least it always has throughout my life. I've never actually gotten into a situation where I had to vacate out of my home because I didn't pay rent. Like, somehow some job would come up that would pay a couple $100 that was just enough to pay half my rent. And then, and then I find a Craigslist job and stand on someone's face as part of Starvival, make another $50, and somehow it comes together. My rent at that time in Toronto was $400, and I had my own apartment.
Did you actually stand on somebody's face?
Yeah, that was the second episode. That was in a park. I was in a public park.
In a public park. Did you take your shoes off?
I took my shoes off, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. Yeah. That would be fetish. I could see how that would be a fetish.
That was the whole job, though. Was get on face, get off face.
How long?
How
long did you have to? How long did you have to stand on his face?
It was a couple minutes, not too long.
And with your whole body weight, or did you hold on to
full
something?
Body weight. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Like on the front of his
Yeah.
face, like not on his
Yeah.
head, on the front of his face.
Fully standing on the full face.
Wow.
And
Was
it's
he
a
a big
weird
guy?
thing. It's like, no, he was a pretty slender guy,
Hmm.
average looking dude.
Yep.
The trickiest part was balancing getting on his face. So
Yeah.
you have to take a step on, put your body weight on one foot, and then bring your other foot and try to balance it out on both of his cheekbones.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you got a tickle guy, a face standing episode. What are the other episodes? What else did you do?
I went all over the place. I dove into scam agencies in Toronto at that time. So people
Okay.
that would charge these astronomical fees to be part of their roster, and they weren't really doing anything for them. So you'd end up having to pay some kind of annual fee to be part of their agency so that they can submit you,
Oh
and you
yeah.
never actually go out and audition. So I did some stuff with them with hidden cameras and calling them out, and
And you tried to expose them?
mm-hmm.
Did it
Yeah,
work?
I blurred everyone's faces just for legality reasons.
Yeah.
That's part of the style of the show was keeping
Blurred
their
faces.
identities blurred. Yeah. It made it more interesting. So
Yeah.
and but I mean, yeah, the content's there was enough to feed that information out to people so that they know, what to beware of when it comes to
Yes.
agencies. And then there was one where I booked a wedding job. It was for me and my boyfriend. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time, so I cast someone off of Craigslist. So I put a
Mm.
casting call out to hire a fake boyfriend so that we could go do this wedding photo shoot together.
Oh,
Just
and
like
that was
quirky stuff like that.
right. Okay, that's kind of fun. So you just like you
Yeah.
pretend like they were looking for real couples, and you just cast
Yes.
somebody.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, I
that's
forgot to
fun.
mention that. Yeah, they wanted a real couple. I pretended I was in a real couple with someone
Yes.
with my partner that I didn't have, and then had to scramble to find someone.
You sounded like you were very industrious at a certain type of social media that wasn't yet popular. Is that right?
Yeah, it was just starting to become popular. Like
Mm.
I don't even think influencer was a term at that time. So it
Yeah,
was
I mean, I
really,
think influencer is actually quite a new. It would be like last 3 years, perhaps,
I guess
just off the
so.
top of my
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
But it's interesting that you mentioned like you blurred all faces, all the faces of the people that you were revealing, and you were
Mm-hmm.
revealing things about them, because that's what happens in this movie. Is you have a similar type of gig going on. This is how you make extra cash, and there's a social media platform that shows all of this, all these type of videos, and you don't. One of your videos goes extra viral. You get all these followers, and one of the guys that you're revealing, you show his face, and you have the option to take the video down, or you have which is really viral and getting you all these followers, or you have the option to keep it up and continue to get all the fame for it. And your character decides to keep it up.
Yeah.
And that's what is the kind of inciting thing, the inciting factor of this movie that leads to everything else happening. Is that what are the themes that you think are in this movie? Things like responsibility of use, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what's so interesting to me is towing that line between going too far, especially when it comes to social media and how we're using people's images in that and what we're asking for permission for. And that was really interesting to me to explore this idea of privacy and what does that look like in a modern day society when, you hop into any Uber or Lyft or restaurant and there's a hidden camera, like there's security cameras up everywhere. Like
Right.
We're being watched everywhere we go now. And
Mm-hmm.
that was still in 2018, that was still new. I was still getting into Ubers at that time and facing a camera on the dash being like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's not weird anymore. Now it's become normal, right?
Yeah.
But at that time it was still reasonably new. So there's that, the invasion of privacy, and I just think it's so interesting, the idea of the repercussions that come with taking social media too far, especially when you're getting into this kind of YouTube star influencer land. I've seen people go through that, and I think what's interesting is how do people come back from that? When they don't make the wisest decisions or make morally the best decisions around doing these stunts. And that was interesting to create Jess with that, to face this moral dilemma and make her a bit of a flawed character, you know, like she's not perfect. She's makes mistakes too. And what are the repercussions of that?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Logan Paul. He famously filmed the forest in Japan where people go to commit suicide. He famously filmed dead bodies there for one of his videos and copped so much crap for it, as he should
Yeah.
have, and since apologized and everything. But there are plenty of examples that we can think of influencers chasing clout at the cost of other people, at the cost of the privacy of other people who didn't consent to giving over their image.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of examples of that, and people are not being that's what's amazing about this movie, I think, is that you preemptively kind of were pointing out something that would only come to the forefront in 2020. I think it really came to the forefront where people were like, hey, should you be filming that person? Did you ask their permission? Did you, is that okay to do that to somebody? Did you get a NDA or a signing a waiver thing from them? I bet you didn't.
Right.
And, that's what this movie's about. I think at its forefront, especially when I came onto that set, or when I came into that, to writing that movie, or to being in that movie, I was like, that's what's going on in this movie, because we always had to keep our eyes on what we were going for. I don't know if you obviously remember this, but when we were shooting it, I think we were always figuring out what it is, what it was, what it's about, which was so fun. But also, I think we all had to get on the same page with, this is what it's about. And it's about people not being responsible with social media, and then the revenge that comes, or that could come, if you were to be irresponsible. Do you think so?
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I remember us coming up with little bits within it that was helping shape the story, right? And helping us understand what because it's so layered. I think Follow Her has always been layered, but we were adding more layers to it, especially when you came in as Tom and brought that character to life. All of a sudden, this guy is so dynamic, and both he and Jess, I think, are both enigmatic, like we don't quite know what's going on. We don't know if we trust either of them, and that's what's so interesting.
Yeah, I'd never really thought about that with her. She's kind of the vulnerable little doe, who's been hunted by the wolf, who is me. But also, you're right. I feel like she's a little bit like you. She'll mold into whatever form she has to in order to survive. As in, she's like old you, young you, who is just like, how do I get paid? How do I get my money? Like, how do I make rent? That's what it's about.
And very aware of all the cameras at all times, right? Like, what angles am I getting? How am I positioning myself in this? How do I make this person trust me? Because that's really what it was in Starvival, is how do I make this person trust me? Like, how do I know? There was one that I did, it was an audio one, and it was talking, this is such an interesting fetish, talking about little people and squishing them. And he wanted to be one of the little people. So it was like a kind of a dominatrix type job, where it was all, he records the audio of it, and I'm torturing his little body and telling him, what a worthless piece of shit he is, and I'm gonna eat him and squish him in my teeth.
Right.
So
wow.
Bizarre.
So you record the audio, and then he kind of does like a graphic video or a graphic like picture of you.
I don't think he does. No, I don't think he does any picture with it. I think it was strictly to listen to. It was just to have the audio. He recorded it.
And he probably like masturbates to it. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I choose not to think that far ahead, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, but come on. Okay, so wait, there's this whole fetish thing that we like. I'm not. So you had to go into these, like, a lot of these Craigslist ads were for people to fulfill their fetishes.
Some of them.
Yes, like the tickles.
I wouldn't even say it was half of them. I like talking about the fetish ones because they're fun.
Oh, they're most interesting. They're fascinating. Yeah,
totally. And they're like, I go do it one time. I explore that world a little bit. I stay within my own boundaries. Like, I don't do anything that feels too exploitive or too sexual. And so I can kind of gather my data, right, and make my own opinion of it. But not trying not. Being very deliberate around not judging anyone, that everyone has their own thing and it is what it is.
And it's just interesting. Like, it's just interesting to shine a light on it. Like, you don't reveal who they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really interesting fetish. These tickle and face standing. It's like, it doesn't really show their genitals or anything. It's just like, isn't this fascinating? You don't need to know who they are, but there's people out here who get off on this.
Yeah.
Like I remember I raised $10,000 during 2020 by just selling pictures of my feet because I kind of became fascinated with people are into feet. Like I didn't
Yeah.
get it. And I kind of like posted about it and it was so fascinating. And then I was like, I'll sell pictures of my feet because I don't give a shit. I mean, they're just feet. But to somebody else, they're a penis. You know, it's like, wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen. I need to see those feet. And so I was selling for $50 a pop. I raised $10,000 and gave it to the Aminata Foundation, who are like, they help women give birth in Sierra Leone, where the mortality rate, the maternal mortality rate's really high.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. But there was one guy who was like,
Wow.
I really want a close up of your foot, and because I'm going to superimpose myself as very small, and your foot as. So he sent me a picture of it. I don't know where it would be, but it's like my foot is giant in a city, like it's like
Yeah.
a King Kong giant in a city. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm bigger than skyscrapers, and my foot is just as big as skyscrapers, and I'm standing on him. And that's what he was into. He wanted to
Mm-hmm.
imagine being squished or being stepped on by me and being very, very small.
Yeah. So it's the same. So that audio job was the same idea,
Uh-huh.
except that we just didn't phrase it as being a massive foot, but it was essentially the same, and
Isn't that
being squashed and dominated by this foot.
Do you know anything about that fetish, like where it comes from? Any ideas?
I didn't really dig that deep into it, to be honest. I found everyone that I recorded to be really interesting people,
Mm.
but I don't know. I didn't really get into
You never
any of
wanted to get in
the
psychology.
history.
Yeah, you just wanted to
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wanted to keep it entertaining and keep it fun, keep it light and do something new. And Starvival was always way ahead of its time. But
Yes.
that show got picked up. VH1 picked it up as a pilot. We shot a pilot in New York. This is how I ended up in New York, actually. And
Mm.
then they passed on the series, and then TBS picked it up as a full TV show. So
Oh,
we went back a year later and filmed the whole series in New York. And
I didn't know that. Starvival,
yeah,
you filmed the whole series with VH1.
yeah. We filmed the pilot with VH1, and then we
Oh,
filmed the whole first season with TBS.
right. Is that something that people can see anywhere? Where is it?
So it never actually aired.
Oh, so they just
Womp
own it. They won't
womp.
give it back to you.
They own it. I mean, it was a $2 million budget, as far as what I remember. And once you give away your rights to a network like that, you have to be able to buy your rights back if they can it, or the show went on a hiatus. They were going to put on their digital network. I don't know that they ever really launched a digital network. It was at the
Mm.
time that all these new streamers were coming out. So I think TBS was thinking, hey, maybe, we'll become more of a streamer and position ourselves like the next Amazon or whatever. And then it never
Yeah.
really happened. So the show went from being a TV show into being more of a web series. And then it just ultimately got canned. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't have $2 million to buy it back, then
Back.
like,
Wow.
see ya to your rights.
Yeah. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the filming process because it was interesting. Um, I remember coming onto this set and I kind of play this guy who is charming. His name's Tom Brady of all names, and he's charming as hell, but we don't know what he wants, and he's out to charm you and then kind of take you for all you're worth. You'll if you see the movie, you'll understand.
Yeah.
But our first day of shooting, we couldn't. It was raining outside. We were supposed to kind of shoot it in order, like us meeting in a park, then going back to my place. We couldn't shoot in the park because it was raining, so we had to go back to my place, the place that was my place, and shoot it in a certain corner of that place because the rest of the set wasn't ready. So we had to shoot the sex scene, a sexual scene, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
and that required us who had just met, me, taking off my kit, you taking off your kit, and you sticking your like tying me up, sticking your feet in my mouth, in my face, and that was the first day of shooting.
That's right.
You remember that?
Yeah. And it's funny because, I mean, obviously, all of this is very relevant because we've been doing the press tour and answering all these questions.
Yes.
So just to acknowledge that, but yeah, remembering the panic and myself around how to keep my feet clean and how do I clean my feet so it's appropriate to put them in your mouth, and how do I get from downstairs in the bathroom to the scene upstairs where we're filming through that space where I don't need to put my foot in a shoe and then take it out of the shoe. It was just all so confused. I was like, do I put it in a sock? I don't know what to do right now.
What did you end up doing?
I don't really remember. I think I blocked it out of my memory.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Don't tell me, because maybe that's why I have foot and mouth disease now. But I remember not, because I'm not a prude by any means. Everyone who knows me, anything about me, knows that I'm not. However, that day I was like, I don't want to shoot that scene. I'm not ready to shoot that scene. And it is a technique that directors use where they want to make their actors closer, so they shoot that scene first, like a sexual scene first, like a kissing scene first, to kind of like break down barriers between the actors. And it kind of was that for us. I mean, it was like the barriers were down as soon as that shit happened. It didn't mean that we were going to get along necessarily.
Yeah, it's an interesting, kind of works in reverse in that way. It does break the ice, that's for sure. Yeah. But it was intense going into that scene. I was so scared because I hadn't been acting for the last couple of years. Like, I completely stepped out of the industry and took a total mental health break. And I'm talking completely cut off, not involved in any way. I didn't have an agent. I was doing dog walking in New York. And so I was like as far away from it as you can get. And so coming back in with Follow Her and having this full crew and feeling that pressure of being the writer and putting myself as the star of the movie alongside you was so scary. I just remember being in that scene being like, keep up, come on, be funnier, be more witty. Oh, say something funny back to what he just said. Like,
oh my God.
Thoughts going through my head. Be cool. I remember always trying to be cool in that scene.
That's a really good,
so cool.
Well, that's a really good, that's a really good note for actors, is be where you are. Like if you're stressing about trying to be cool, there's a good chance you don't look very cool. And that's where the actors where the character is at. Sometimes that really works, is like, oh, I'm really nervous. The character could be nervous, which, really works for your character. It's funny, you taking a few years off. I was very warm. I would like, I'd been acting a whole bunch, and I was very like, I felt warm as an actor. I felt like, throw anything at me, I can do it. And particularly this script, which you had written so beautifully, I was like, oh, this character, I can nail this. And I came in like hot, and you came in cold, and you were like, oh, I got to keep up with this guy. And also I was like, I'm rambunctious and kind of playful, but also we didn't get along. Like, you and I kind of butted heads a few times, didn't we? I mean, we were still friendly, I'd say 75% of the time.
I wouldn't necessarily say we butted heads. I feel I couldn't read you. And I couldn't tell if you were being the character or if you were being Luke, because I didn't know you on that level. And so I just remember feeling on edge around you because I couldn't tell. It was all the lines felt very blurry to me around who you were, and was I annoying to you? And I just remember like moments in between takes, in between shooting, where we're all just kind of sitting around and we don't know what's going on, and I will never get your voice out of my head where you're like, what's going on? What are we doing? I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, Luke hates this. He doesn't want to be here. And so I started panicking about that. But it was great because you got things moving, and then all of a sudden people are communicating with us around what's going on. And you know, Luke, now that I think about it, that scene, it probably really worked in our favor to do that, to do the sexy scene first, because there's probably a level of nervousness for you too that did allow me to keep up with you, versus building that relationship first and then jumping into that scene. Like, who knows what would have happened had we done it in a different order.
Yeah, totally. I think that there were moments for me where, look, I have a bone of arrogance. Like that arrogance is within me, and it's something that I hate to have to fight. And sometimes it's good, because it's like I have a standard for myself, and I have a standard for those around me, and don't fuck with my standard. AKA, if nothing's going on and there's something should be going on, then you want somebody like me around, because I'll yell at people to make something happen, because otherwise all our time wasted. We all want to go home. And also my standard means, which can be arrogant, also means like, I want to make something great. you want to make something great too? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to get better. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, to me, that was me to you. I was like, Dani, you need to get ready, and you need to be ready for this shit, because I really want to make something good, and you want to make something good, and you need to get better. And then I was demanding of you, and I was treating you in a way that was like, you better get better. Which means, by the way, for everyone who doesn't know what that means, like sometimes I wasn't that nice to Dani. Sometimes I was like, you need to get better in this scene right now. And I made her feel like that. But also in the end, if you've seen this movie, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not good because I was a prick to Dani. It's good because everyone got good. Everyone did good. Dani did real good. I did good. And part of it is like, what do you ask of yourself? And then what do you ask of other people? And what was demanded within that barn that we shot in was like, let's all be fucking good. Let's not make a shitty indie film. Let's make this really interesting. And everyone has said, like, everyone who watches that was like, that was good. Like, that was some fascinating, that wasn't just some random drab indie that's kind of scary and like all the dialogue is drab. It's fucking interesting. And and that's me talking about a movie that I'm in. So it sounds arrogant again. However, I just take it from everybody else. Like, I don't know, I've made a few shitty indie movies, and people are like, "Yep, thanks for showing." And then, but this one, people are like, "Okay, what the fuck? That's really interesting." And I think we really made something happen.
I think you're a prime example of that too, because I don't know that you really believed the movie was going to be good all the way through shooting. I don't feel there wasn't really a moment for you where you were like, oh, this is cool, this is going to be great, right?
No, not during shooting.
Right,
well, no, because that can't be the case anyway. I mean, as far as performance, you have to be like, every bit needs to be good. So you can't just go halfway through and go, this is going to be good. It's like, no, it's like, it better be good. And a huge proportion of indie movies rely on, because so much of it is just you and I. It's like, well, I need to be as good as I can be, and you need to be as good as you can be. It doesn't rest, not going to rest on the camera department. It's not going to be like beautifully shot, so that everybody needs to be good. Everybody needs to lift their weight. And so I didn't think it was going to be, I wasn't sure if it was going to be good. I was like, I tell you what, I'm going to make sure that I am fucking crushing it. Because as I said, I've done a few indie movies, and I hate, and some of them aren't that good. But I am always like, well, okay, well, they don't have a budget. They're not going to pay me fucking anything. But, well, what does that mean for me? It's like, well, go and crush your scenes. Go and crush it. And so that, like, even if everyone's like, oh, what a movie, I don't know what that was. But Luke Cook was good. That's what I'm going for. You know what I mean? Because as actors, like, and we've both battled. You and I both struggled, like, to get to where we are. And so it's like, well, every role is an opportunity to show people what you got. Like, I know because of acting school about what I'm capable of. And then I'm like, okay. And I was like hot off coming out of acting school when I shot this movie. And I was like, of course, I want to use all of that and use it. Like, every time I get to do a scene, I want to blow people's fucking socks off. So I'm hungry for that opportunity. And as you get more and more rich, as you get further and further away from struggling, that fire is less within you. And
interesting.
So you and I still have that fire, baby. Like, we're still ready to rock. Like, and this movie is just the beginning, I think, for both of us.
Well, I'm honestly so grateful for you being on set with me, because you made it so much easier for me to simply react off of you. Like, I didn't feel like I had to work as hard, because I feel like you carried it, and all I had to do was respond to it, which was very appropriate for the character of Jess anyway, because there's a level of vulnerability in her. She's in, and that's how it feels when you invite someone into your space, right? Like, you own the space when it's yours, and this is supposed to be Tom's space. So he's going to feel more confident and arrogant within that space, and Jess is going to be more uncomfortable and trying to make a good impression and all those things that we do when we're trying to swoon someone.
Yeah, and the secrets are mine in the scene. It's like, I know what you're doing. You don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And the audience knows what you're doing, but the audience does not know what I'm doing. So the secrets are all mine. So it's all my confidence. The cards are all mine, and I got a royal flush. Like I'm a fuck you up. Like I'm gonna get you. And so that's nothing but fun to play with as an actor. The harder job is actually yours, I think. But also I can make your job easier by making sure that you don't know what I'm gonna do next,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say for me, the hardest thing, which I did not realize until we were deep into shooting, was how much I had planted ideas in my head around the script and how scenes were going to play out based on how I wrote it. And then when we're on set and you really have to just let all of that go and let the words go, let everything go other than your character's intention.
Yeah.
That was difficult. That was a difficult position to be in, and envisioning it in so many different ways, from the development of the script to just being on set with you. And like, thank God Sylvia did such a good job in the sense that she really just let us play. I feel like she created the space so that we could just play and have fun and improvise. And there really was never a take where we didn't get to improvise.
Yes.
Right?
And so anyone's interested, Sylvia is the director, and she did an amazing job. But also, Dani had written it. If you haven't seen it yet, or if you've already seen it, Dani wrote all of that. And some of it we improvised, but mostly the script was pretty much there. And so Dani has to, the role of the writer is so different because you envision things going in a certain way. And then when you rock up to do it, everything's different. And you don't know what the other actor's going to do. You don't know what the director's going to say. And everything then changes. I change the words. I improvise. And so as a writer, you really have to take off the writing hat and put on the actor's hat. And even actors, I have an envisionment of how the scene, I don't even know if that's a word, envisionment. I have a vision of how the scene's going to go. And I rock up. And then when I walk to set, I get to the mark and I'm like, wait, everything's different. So we all have to redesign and roll with the punches because you don't know what's going to happen. Don't pre-design what's going to happen. I think that's a huge part of the creative process.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part as an actor, is to let go of all of your ideas, and especially when you're the writer. I think that's why so many writers end up directing their own work, right? Because they're playing the whole movie in their head as they're writing it. So all you have to do is go execute that vision when you're on set. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I remember I heard Patrick Swayze say once that he never has more ideas than when he's walking to set. To shoot he's never he's filled with ideas about all the things that he could do.
Yeah.
And then you land and you're like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. All of those ideas I have to throw out the window, and I need to re-establish this reality, which is the reality of how it's going to go.
Right.
Yeah, super interesting. I mean, I don't think people really fathom when it comes to making a movie. It was your first movie that you'd ever written. It was the first movie that you'd ever starred in. We started filming in the beginning of 2019, and we didn't. You guys didn't stop shooting until when? A year later?
Yeah, it was pretty much exactly a year. So it was 2020 that we filmed the second part of the movie, which was everything in and around New York City. And that, I mean, we wrapped days before the world shut down for COVID.
Wow. Wow.
Crazy? Yeah.
That is crazy. And then I don't think what people don't fathom, and what I'd really admire, is you guys shot it. You shot it over like a year. Then you went, then you had to go and edit it and find money to edit it and do all the post, which is expensive. And then you have to go and, somehow find money to get it distributed and do all of this. It's just this never-ending battle, it seems. Is that what it's actually like? Is it just feel this uphill battle the whole time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels worse than even what you've just said. It just feels like it never ends. It feels like every time we come around this, we reach this huge milestone, and we raised $62,000 doing WeFunders. We have 123 investors through WeFunder of people that supported the film. Yeah, and I believe that money was all for post-production. Who friggin' knew that it cost so much to deliver a film? Yeah, it's easily 20 grand just to deliver a film. And that's not money this isn't something that I feel like you're taught as an indie filmmaker. Nobody warns you of that you need to have money aside for accounting, to do your taxes on the company, You need paperwork dealing with payouts. Like, how is everybody getting paid if and when the film profits? All of that costs money to get the lawyer to look over everything. And it's just not something that I was ever warned about. So it's just been constant around needing to raise money. We raised enough for you and I to shoot everything in the barn so that we could wrap you, so you could be done.
Yeah.
And then we had to go back in, and Sylvia and I were raising. I went to Florida with Sylvia. We were in Florida trying to raise money, and eventually raise enough money to do the second year and finish the movie. And then we had to raise money on post-production. Then we're raising money on delivery. It's crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
that's so... do it like that again, though.
You wouldn't. Yeah, I understand.
No.
Well, I've already said this to you in person, but I think it's like, I understand all the car parts. Like, I don't understand cars, but I now understand all the car parts because I've had shitty cars. And that's the kind of process that you've, like, I had to learn what a torque was because I had a shitty car. What's a torque? I'd never heard of a torque before.
Torque.
And then I had a TORQUE. I was like, oh, but that apparently is in my car. And that's how I learned all the car parts, was by having a shitty car. You had to go from the ground up to build this film. And it's not a shitty car, but it's like that though, isn't it? It's like, wow, it's a great way to learn, is by having like this uphill battle that you've actually had to go through. And now you kind of understand how to do it.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that, and that was the whole intention of doing this movie. This movie was meant to be the mistake project. This is the movie that we go film and make all our mistakes on, so that we can take all these other scripts that, you know, I've written with friends, and do them well, and do them properly, so we're not making those mistakes again. So Follow Her totally served its purpose in that sense.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest takeaways is creating a budget and sticking to that budget, because you can forever be tweaking budgets as you go at any point along the way, and you can make it work. You can make a movie for $100,000 and you can ask favors and you can get people to work for free, or you can make a movie for $1 million and everyone gets paid, but you can still get locations for free that would save you $50,000. So everything it's adjusting. The numbers are moving all the time, but I feel like it's our job to set a budget and stick to it, because that you just avoid so much headache later of trying to like wrap your head around things that are constantly shifting. So that's one thing that I would do. And then raising the money all at once, so you don't have to go back in and raise money again.
And then you don't have to shoot it over a year. Like, that's far too long. I mean, you should try and shoot it in a month if you can get it done like straight away, right?
And then give yourself a proper delivery schedule, so that you're delivering it within, you know, you can get a movie delivered within a month. You can have 1 month of editing, deliver it, get notes, and that movie can be done and out in the world in a few months' time. It doesn't need to take that long. But mind you, COVID really slowed things down for us. So there was that.
Right. So just tell me about a lot of people would be listening to this and thinking, okay, I want to make an indie, or I want to make a movie. What's the mistake idea you've mentioned?
Like what mistakes were made?
No, you said that you wanted to make a film that was your mistake or something.
Yeah. So I'd written this film called The Quick Fix. This is a feature that I'd been writing for, no joke, 10 years on and off. And it's always one that I keep going back and revisiting. That was my baby project. That was the one that I was going to give birth to. That was going to be my segue back into the industry. I was going to
out of
star
your
in it.
Creative womb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was gearing up to start raising money for that and pull together a team. And I remember being in New York listening to a podcast, and someone on that podcast had said, don't go putting all your eggs in that basket yet. Go make another film, write something that you like. It doesn't need to be perfect, and go make all your mistakes on that project. Do it for low budget, keep the sets minimal, keep the actors minimal, and then just go mess around and have fun. And so Follow Her always started with $100,000 budget. It was intended to be really cheap, one location, 2 actors.
Yeah.
And then it grew, the characters grew, the backstories grew, the budget grew, and everything just started growing. And it's turned into this really beautiful, epic film now because of it. But it certainly didn't start there. I was like, yeah, I'll write this thing. And I played the podcast, went home, and literally started writing right away.
Wow. So tell me about what you're doing now. Like, what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to make that other film at some point, The Quick Fix. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been written for so long, and it would also make a great series. So that's in the slate of projects. I know
Mm-hmm.
you and I are working on a couple things together,
Yeah, well,
which is
I mean,
exciting.
are you? Can you announce your job, your new job, or?
I'm working with Tall Pines Entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm helping run that company,
Mm.
and that's through Mike Hassan, who's been one of our biggest champions on Follow Her.
Mm.
He's one of our executive producers, and so now we're working together, and yeah, working pretty seriously on building up a slate of projects. And
If we were in a pre-pandemic world, you'd have an office job now.
in a pre-pandemic world,
Like you would be at the Tall Pines offices.
I suppose so. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
because you're kind of like, what is your title at Tall Pines? Like we're talking about a person who's gone from who's an actor who's trying to make the rent and doing this secret camera video like thing
Hmm.
with standing on people's faces. Then you go and make a feature film that is your mistake. Apparently, you meet
Hmm.
these guys who want to create a production company, and
Hmm.
you're like one of the heads of their production company.
Yeah, I'm the CEO.
What?
Which
Come
I'm learning.
on.
I'm on the hook for some liability stuff.
Yeah,
We
right. If
need to
everything
sort
goes south,
out.
that's you, bitch.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
No, but that's so interesting because, like, a lot of people would be listening out there and going, okay, well, I kind of want to make a feature. And it's like, and you make a feature like this. Follow Her's a really, well, it's a low budget film. How much did it cost altogether?
It's under 1 million.
Under a
I don't know
million.
what I'm
And then it's
allowed to
led you to
say. I
this.
don't personally care if I tell the budget, but other people care. So
Other
we'll
people
just say
care.
it's
That's
under a
fine.
million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, isn't it interesting because you make this thing and then you all of a sudden are a CEO of this entertainment company,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool. It's something aspirational. People would like to hear that. And so for anybody out there, like, who wants to be inspired by someone, Dani could be that person. She's inspirational to me because she made this film and got it made, and it's not easy to get things made. I don't understand the half of it. I'm just the little creative bitch on the side who's like, okay, when do I need to act? Where's my mark? What are my lines? That's me. But Dani's actually got in the trenches and gone and made this stuff, and we are now working together. She's working with a couple of scripts that I've written. I'm very excited for the future.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's all doable. It's the thing, like once you go through it, you see how doable it is to get a
Mm-hmm.
film on its feet. And now it's all about building relationships in this industry, right? And in any industry,
Yes.
and nurturing those relationships. And I feel like it has been such an uphill battle with Follow Her, but I don't feel like anything will ever be that hard. It will never be a struggle in that way again, where we're going to be reaching out to, like, I'm going to be harassing my family for 2 years straight to give me money so I can make my baby project, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's funny to think of
Like,
us. It's funny to think of us as, like, now that we're continuing to work together on bigger and bigger things. And, our first day together was you sticking your foot in my mouth. Not in a sexual way. It was on
where it
screen, on
all
film.
began.
Yeah, and that's where it all began. And now we're like reaching for bigger and bigger and better things.
And I think it's so important as an artist to learn the business side of things too. And so when you're given an
Mm.
opportunity to help run a company, to be CEO or whatever, head of development, you have to really understand the business side of things through and through. And even within that, there's been such an artist battle in my head. Like, fortunately, I've been working through it, and I've been working through some of that, publicly in front of my team, because the artist in me is like, stop, don't put me out of work. I need a job. I need to write. I want to write. I'm a starving artist. This is how I've lived 30 years of my life.
Mm.
Like, what are you going to do? You're going to learn the business and sell yourself and be a sellout? Like, it's so crazy, that internal battle that comes up.
Right, because are you saying that, like, you used to just want to be an actor and just be a creative, and now you're learning the business side and you feel like you're out of place?
Yeah, I've only ever known the creative side. And
Yes.
so the artist in me has always worked very hard, but I've never really looked into the business side. Had I learned the business side, it would have been a very different approach with TBS or VH1, knowing how contracts work, like how to protect ourselves in these situations, what to fight for. I mean, it's everything. What happens to your rights when you sign them away? How do you get those back after a certain period of time? It's
Yeah.
stuff that comes with experience, of course, but it's all business.
Yeah, and also what I think of when you're talking about this stuff is, like I used to think as a young man, I was like, I will do nothing but be an actor. I'm not
Yeah.
going to, I'm going to have a side job, but I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to move up the ranks there and be a manager, which is actually a really good thing to think. But it's all very young. It's very
Mm.
like, okay, how I'm just going to be an actor. And then as I've gotten older and I have 2 kids now, the pressure's on to make money. And I've
Yeah.
come to the realization that I'm not just an actor. That's just not the truth of me. I'm a multifaceted human being with many different talents that aren't just reading lines and saying lines in a certain way. And for
Right.
any actors out there or any creatives at all, you have to understand that so much of your talent isn't just for Hollywood. It's actually, you can be used in many different ways, and you should think of yourself as a multifaceted individual who can do many different things, not just this. Because so often we get bogged down with Hollywood not giving us what we think we're deserving of, or what we're good enough to do, and it's really a frustrating thing. However, if you can fuck off Hollywood and go and do something that does fulfill you, that you don't need their call to say yes or no on, you don't need their call to say yes or no on, so that you can feel fulfilled in yourself. I recommend going and doing that instead of just waiting around for a call that lets you know whether you're successful or not. Go and create your own success. And when you do, Hollywood will come calling and you can say yes or no to them. And that'll be a really fulfilling thing for you. You're not just a creative, you're a many, many different things. And so if you're out there and you just think of yourself as an actor and you're just a purist, it's like, I don't think that that's the truth. I think you're a few more things than that. And that's what you're discovering.
I completely agree. I was reading that in a book recently, and it said the same thing. It's this like how to be successful book and how to get rich.
I've read those
And that's
books.
what they. Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this. I will teach you to be rich. It's on my,
There you go.
like, it's like I'm trying to be rich.
I was just reading Rich Dad Poor Dad just to learn how to invest money and where to
Uh-huh.
put your money and how to start thinking in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing where it's like don't put all your eggs in one basket around one specific job that you need to know, because if that job dries up or
Right.
you get laid off or fired, then what? Now
Yes.
that's your only skill. So it's
Yeah.
like go learn as many skills as you can and know that you can, especially in today's world. Like we can jump all over the place, and now with AI, like there's just so many different jobs popping up that
Mm-hmm.
it's good to utilize all of these skills.
Yes. Let's talk about June 2nd. It's actually past June 2nd now when we'll be releasing this podcast, but on June 2nd and after, you can follow her, and you can watch it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV. It's fully on VOD. Where else can you watch it?
Yeah. Google Play,
Google Play,
iTunes.
iTunes.
iTunes, Amazon. Those are the main ones.
Everybody will have that.
More.
And it's like $6, right?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be $6.99 would be my guess.
$6.99, $69.
Yeah.
They did that on purpose. Very sexual. But go and buy it, watch it, check it out if you haven't already. I guarantee that you will have a good time doing so. It's well worth it. We're very like proud of the way it turned out. I'm proud of just being a little portion of it. Dani was this huge portion of it, who was the big driving force behind it. Dani, how can we find you and follow you? Follow her. Lol.
Well, I'm on all the socials. My handles are Dani Barker 7 usually on Instagram, Facebook. We're gonna have a lot of stuff going up on the Tall Pines website soon, and then I have my own personal website. I'm all over the place.
Tallpines.com?
Tallpinesentertainment.com.
Got it.
Yeah.
Dani Barker, thanks so much for joining me on the Zaddy Zone.
Thank you, Luke. This has been a lot of fun.
Pleasure.